Well, hello, welcome back to another episode of 0 to 60 and a scan tool review video. So there are millions of these videos on YouTube and I kind of want to approach it from a different angle. Yes, I didn't pay for the scan tool. Yes, I said I'd do a video on it, but I didn't say I'd do a nice video. However, this is from TOPDON. TOPDON sent me a jump pack to review at the start of the year, and the lady that speaks to me from TOPDON is actually really nice to deal with compared to a lot of these Chinese companies. She's actually quite helpful. She's not forceful. They don't demand anything. And she keeps saying, if you want something else, let me know. When she said, do I want a scan tool? My initial thoughts were no, because I have ISTA, IMPA, BMW standard tools, all my cars are Beamers. What do I need a scan tool for? And I feel that way because the genuine scan tools work a lot better than these. And that's what leads me into the biggest fallback or drawback with these types of tools. So if you've been playing with BMW scan tools, ISTA, IMPA, the BMW standard tool suite, you'll know that to download all of the data and files for all of the models of BMW that this little tool is supposed to service is something like 100 gigabytes. Now, there's not 100 gigabytes of storage on here just for the BMW section, but then when you take into account that it has to do everything else, so it does pretty much every make and model there is. But it is just a diagnostic scan tool. It doesn't do coding, it doesn't tell you necessarily how to fix everything, and that is something that you need to keep in mind with the proper factory tools. They will often have instructions on how to remove a head, how to torque things, all that sort of stuff. So there is a ton more information in the proper tool. Really all they're going to be doing is emulating the commands that the factory tools actually send to the vehicles to get the diagnostics data. And it is continually a fight to reverse engineer the factory scan tools or the factory software like IMPA or ISTA or whatever the Mercedes version is. Something that I really like about this type of tool, which is an Android tablet based thing versus the smaller handheld ones with the cables that come out of them, this keeps updating. Since I've had it, it's done over 140 updates, and that updates the way that this scan tool communicates with more vehicles. So it just keeps it more relevant for more makes and models. If you've been around or in the auto industry forever, Snap-on, I nearly called them Scap-on. Snap-on scan tools have been around forever, and they've always sort of been regarded as the daddy with mechanics. Now mechanics, I guess, specialty mechanics are becoming a little bit more popular, but 20 years ago, mechanics worked on everything. There wasn't really a Euro specialist, there wasn't an Australian car specialist, a Japanese specialist. Mechanics just did the work they needed to do to get paid. And having a tool that would scan multiple vehicles was invaluable. Even back then, the modules weren't overly complex in the car, and that does add a lot of work for these guys to be doing. But Snap-on have been doing scan tools for ages. Most mechanics I speak to that have been mechanics for a long time love their Snap-on scan tool, and they still use the Snap-on scan tool before they use anything else even today. However, these Chinese guys are getting a bit tricky. So I don't know if they reverse engineer the Snap-on scan tool or if they pull apart the factory diagnostic software to use those functions in this. But what I've sort of noticed with this is I've been doing a lot of testing, and I'll show you some of the tests that I have done, but the BMW feature set in particular, it's like they have had ISTA or IMPA running, and they're then scanning for the code, or maybe not the code, but the command that ISTA will send to the vehicle module to do the diagnostics. And you end up with the same level of diagnostics that you get with ISTA, but without all of the back-end fluff. Is that the right word? I don't know. So it doesn't necessarily give you as much information as ISTA will when you're doing some sort of diagnostics. However, it works the same way. It's sending the same command to the module to get the result that you may need. And something this scan tool does do, it does link straight to the internet. So if it's got a fault code, it links straight to Google, which is how I fix everything, really. You Google what the fault code is, you Google what the problem is and how people have fixed it, and this takes you straight there to do it. So keep it in mind that really all they're going to be doing is emulating the commands that the factory tools actually send to the vehicles to get the diagnostics data. And it is continually a fight to reverse engineer the factory scan tools or the factory software like IMPA or ISTA or whatever the Mercedes version is. Something that I really like about this type of tool, which is an Android tablet based thing versus the smaller handheld ones with the cables that come out of them, this keeps updating. Since I've had it, it's done over 140 updates, and that updates the way that this scan tool communicates with more vehicles. So it just keeps it more relevant for more makes and models. Again, it's probably overkill for guys that have just got one make of car at home. You're probably better off getting the scan tool that's specifically for that brand. However, if you're a car dealer, if you've got a few different makes and models in your household and you're the guy that has to look after everything, it's worth having. And it's quicker, I think, than getting the laptop out. So it's not a terrible tool, and I've had it for over a month, and I wanted to put it through its paces a bit and see if I can find a use case for it. But not only that, I also wanted to try and scan a few other vehicles, not just BMW. So let me show you how that progressed. The first vehicle I actually connected it to was Andrew's Nissan Cube. And obviously being an older vehicle, the modules are not very powerful. That car is an early 2000 Nissan. And the scan tool was very slow to connect. However, it did eventually connect, and it showed me this. But this is what it has found inside the vehicle. So it's got the engine computer, the ABS, the body control module, airbag, transmission, EPS, I don't know what that is, and then IPDM. So that's all it's actually found. And we have an engine light. So we're going to go to the engine. And I guess it has a direct communication to the engine computer right now. There it is. Okay, so let's go module information, see what it says. Oh, it's literally just giving us a part number. Okay, and the programming on it. Read the fault codes. Brake switch circuit. So the Nissan Cube, being a bit of an older vehicle, it didn't actually pull the VIN number out of the OBD port. Now, I'm not sure if I did something wrong with this, or if the Cube just doesn't transmit its VIN number through the OBD. But these tools will use a VIN number to narrow down or do like an engine, not an engine build, a vehicle build list, to try and identify what modules are actually in the car. With the Cube, I did a manual selection of a Nissan Cube, and it went through and checked for every single module that Nissan had in a 2003. So it was even looking for rear wheel steering, which I'm not aware of any Cubes having rear wheel steering, but it did take quite a long time. But long story short, it scanned everything, it found the modules that it could recognize in the car, and there was only, I think, 8 or 10 of them. Again, it's a very basic older vehicle. And yeah, it connected to the engine computer. We found out what the OBD light was on the dash, and it was a dodgy brake light switch that Andrew, the guy that owned the car, had no idea was there. So it did sort of, well, it did identify the problem. It did its fault diagnosis on the Nissan Cube. Now, the other vehicles that I wanted to test didn't actually really have anything wrong with them. I just wanted to see how they communicated. So the next car that I connected it to was Andrew's nearly new Lexis LC500. And it's the newer vehicles that are much more complicated. There's a lot more messages being sent backwards and forwards through all the modules. They all have different types of CAN bus speeds, different protocols for everything to communicate with. So this is where a decent company needs to put a lot of effort into making the tools work and read different vehicles. So let me show you what we did when we connected it to the Lexus. Okay, so we're now in Andrew's LC500, a much more posh car, and hopefully it's got a little bit more information coming out of the OBD port. Let's do an auto search. Hey, it got the VIN. Huh, it's almost like if you know what you're doing, it works. Okay, so what's it gonna let us do? Oh my gosh. That is the rolls. Okay, so I'm going to try something weird on this car. I'm going to go health report and just see what the scan tool thinks of the car, because the car is pretty healthy. Oh, sub battery system, it's cruise control system, the transmission, everything's getting green ticks. Oh, it's got electronic parking brake. Oh, your VGRS is questionable. Cool. All right, so we're coming through. It's actually got a timer. It's 2.5 minutes to scan everything. And the modules that this generic scan tool has picked up is crazy. So we've got errors in these modules here. That's pre-collision, the air conditioner, the combination meter, not sure what that is, the main body, head-up display, navigation, active noise cancellation. And let's just have a look at some of these errors and see how clever this scan tool is. So in the pre-collision, there is a heater circuit error. Okay, it's a history as well. It's not a current code. Go straight to Google. Far out. Well, that's pretty cool. Tells us what it is. That's better than relying on a translated version, which is what most of these cheaper scan tools have. Air conditioner. So the damper control servo motor. But they're all historic errors. They're not current. Combination meter. Lost communication with navigation module. Let's see if we can get some more info on it. And there it is. That's pretty handy. It's quick too. Again, they're all history. None of these codes are active. So I just started playing a little bit around and I clicked on driver's door module, which has given us all of these options here. And what I want to do is just see if we can log the window switch. Glass position, okay. Okay, so we've got those there. Can you touch the window switch? And go up. Ah, it did. So if you go down, hang on, I've only logged up. I didn't log down, but if you pull it up, okay. So it does actually allow you to log certain things on a 2019, 2020 Lexus. That was probably a very bad example, but you can see that it's picking up the window switch position. Yeah, so we're both pretty impressed with what it picked up on the Lexus. In fact, as far as we are aware, and I'm not overly familiar with the electronic side of the Lexuses, this thing actually picked up every module in that 2019 car. And it had basic logging features of everything, so you could check, maybe not logging features, but you could check functionality, so you can check when a window switch is actually being activated, which is good for diagnostics. That is what these are, in my opinion, really for. They're for fixing issues with customers' cars. That's what they exist, or your own car. But yeah, they're not like a coding tool. It doesn't tell you how to do it, but it helps you identify what the fault is and then move forwards from there. And for the sub $500 bracket, I'm pretty damn impressed with it. It's probably the best scan tool under 500 Australian dollars. The Bluetooth dongle, which is how you connect, seems to just connect instantly as soon as it's got power, like within a few seconds. It hides away in there. It's a nice rubberized hard plastic, which is easy to grip, but it's well wearing. It's a nice little tool. It's the best universal scan tool I've ever had in my possession. Mind you, I've never had a snap-on. So I was impressed with what I could do with the Lexus. It did what we needed it to do with the Nissan. I then went and tried it on Andrew's E60 M5. Now that car had been sitting, it had a bit of a flat battery, but it eventually scanned everything. I've also connected it to my E92 335, the E90 335, and it pretty much does everything on an E-Series BMW that you could ever imagine, from window regulator position resets. It can reset oil and all the normal service counters. I know you can do it through the stalk, but if you're a mechanic and you've got a load of different brands that you're working on, you're probably not going to remember the stalk sequence, so you can open up your TOPDON scanner and it'll actually reset the oil counter for you. And it was pretty quick. It was as quick as doing it with the stalk. What else could it do? I did actually connect it to an F15 X5. I wanted to make sure that it was connecting with the FlexRay bus adequately, and it did. I actually did that this morning. I managed to communicate with pretty much every module in the F series that I could think of. I did actually pull out clutch adaptation data from the 8HP. Again, it was all super quick to get that information. No issues doing it. This scan tool is good for the money. Like I said at the start, I prefer proper BMW tools, and I will never get rid of my laptop that's got ISTA and IMPA on it. But I seem to be taking this with me when I go on a road trip. So if I'm going more than an hour away from home, I throw this in the car just because it's quick. And actually coming back from Brisbane a couple of weeks ago, I had an issue in the E53 X5 where I was getting trans failsafe. Now, when that fault pops up on your dash, it could be something as simple as low transmission fluid. It could be something's broken. But I wanted to keep driving the car because I was stuck on the way home. I was about 30 minutes from home. Now, I could have either called a tow truck or connect the scan tool up. So I connected the scan tool and actually told me that it was a fault with the selector position. So at that point, I knew that there's nothing actually mechanically wrong with the clutches. I'm probably not going to damage the gearbox if I try and limp it home because it was stuck in limp mode. And that's what I did. I knew that it was just an electrical issue with the switch, which I've since fixed. It wasn't too bad. It was just a dirty connection, annoyingly. But yeah, I limped it home confidently knowing that I'm not going to damage anything inside the gearbox because it's low on oil or anything like that. Guys, that is my 2 cents on these scan tools. Probably the best scan tool under 500 Australian dollars. It doesn't do coding, it doesn't do programming, but it seems to be pretty good for working out what's causing those little lights on your dashboard. All basic service functions like brake pad resets, DPF resets, ABS bleeding, all that sort of stuff. It even does keys for Japanese cars. I mean, if it's as good as anything VVDI, it probably doesn't do keys very well. In fact, it's kind of got a very similar feel to the software to my VVDI products, which kind of makes me think like a lot of these Chinese companies are They're either using the same back-end software, or got the same programmers or coders, or however they're working it out. But it has got quite a few functions to keep the average mechanic at bay, or the average at-home mechanic. If you've got a BMW, make sure you get ISTA and input and standard tool set up first. But this is a handy little thing to throw in the car if you're going to the track and you don't want to cart around a laptop, or if you're going on a holiday, that sort of thing. It has been handy. Thank you, TOPDON, for sending it to me. I hope you don't mind me talking about it the way I do. But yeah, it's actually a pretty good scan tool. And I'm not going to give it away. I'm going to keep it. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Any questions about the TOPDON ArtiDiag800BT, let me know below. It has been faultless and done what it's intended to do. Thanks again. I almost forgot. I did hook it up to a Lamborghini while I was testing it, and it pretty much was useless on a Lamborghini. The only thing it can connect to on a Lambo was the engine computer, and that was really only allowing it to do basic emissions stuff. Yeah, it didn't really have any benefit of doing a Lambo. So don't buy it if you've got a Lambo.